June 21st. This is episode 123, and we are bringing you the 5 things you need to know every day in the world of fantasy sports. I apologize for my voice. I have a pretty nasty cold, and today's coverage is going to be about the baseball injuries and some suspensions. We're also going to talk about the top 4 running backs in fantasy football. I know the NBA draft was last night, but everything went pretty much as expected, at least at the top where it really matters. Zion went number 1 to New Orleans, and Morant went number 2 to the Grizzlies. So it kind of makes sense. And those are the only 2 players with huge fantasy impact, I think, for this season. Barrett might have a nice impact in New York if they don't sign any free agents, because then he'll be the only real player there. But that's really it from the draft. And we're going to get to the baseball stories and fantasy football right after a word from www.mathradio.com, where you can pick up an online math course for your child for as little as $9.99 to help them get better grades, score higher on exams, and even get into college. Once again, that is www.mathradio.com. All right, let's talk baseball suspensions. So the A's, Franklin Martez is facing a 80-game suspension for using a banned substance. He's been amazing this year. He's 9-2 with a 2.70 ERA, 97 strikeouts, and only 90 innings. So that's really going to hurt fantasy owners and the Oakland Athletics. Moving over to Texas, the Texas Rangers, as Asdrubal Cabrera will face a 4-game suspension as well. He's batting not having nearly as good a season as Martez is. He's batting .242 with 11 home runs. Moving to the National League, the Atlanta Braves, Keuchel is going to make his debut tonight. And let's see how that goes. I think you should have already picked up Keuchel if you wanted to. So we'll see how it works out for our fantasy owners and the Atlanta Braves. All right, let's move over and start talking about the top 4 running backs in fantasy football. These are kind of your elite 4. Everybody kind of has the same 4 guys at the top of draft boards in some kind of order. Not only are the top 4 running backs on the list, but they're usually the top 4 picks in any fantasy draft. So we're going to start with number 4. I have Alvin Kamara at number 4. He finished number 4 last year as well. Kamara is kind of like a video game player. He can outrun almost anyone on the field, and he catches everything. Mark Ingram has been their other back in New Orleans for a long time. Kamara's first 2 seasons. With Ingram's departure, Kamara could carry even more of the load, which would be good for fantasy owners. The sky is really the limit for Kamara. I would be shocked if he fell outside the top 5. I would not be shocked if he finished number 1 overall, but I'm going to have him number 4 on my list. I think he's a very reliable choice for your RB1 at the top of the draft. Player number 3, I have Christian McCaffrey. He also finished 3rd last year as well. He did it all for the Panthers last year. No reason for that to change heading into the 2019 campaign. He averaged 7.8 receiving targets last season, every game, which led all running backs. So I find that very, very strong. You should have Christian McCaffrey have a huge floor. I mean, he runs the ball well as well, of course. He's explosive running and receiving. He should be a top-end fantasy running back. Again, wouldn't be surprised if he finished anywhere from 1 to 5. Number 2 on my list, a lot of people have number 1, is Saquon Barkley. He finished number 2 as well last year. The second best running back in fantasy last season, should easily remain in the top 5. The Giants have a lot less weapons, so I think you're going to see a lot more of Saquon. They seemed to practice restraint last year when it came to Saquon's usage. Will they show that same restraint and sensibility in year 2? I doubt it. Barkley is young, talented, and he received the 3rd most targets among running backs last season, and they have depleted most of their weapons. So I expect him to get lots of targets, lots of carries, and be a fantasy stud again this year. Number 1, I'm going with Dallas Cowboy Ezekiel Elliott. The Dallas running back should be the cornerstone of the offense again this year. He finished 5th last year, so it's a bit of a stretch, but I like Elliott. He could easily finish number 1 among running backs this season, and he should have a easily top 5 floor with close to 100 targets as well. Not many people think of Ezekiel Elliott as a pass catcher, but he is. He finished 5th in targets among running backs last season, so he does basically everything for that Cowboys offense. I know they brought in Amari Cooper. Maybe that opens up some things for him, and I think he just has the longest track record. And he is proven to be consistent year in and year out. If I was picking at number 1, I would like that stability, and I would go with Ezekiel Elliott as my number 1 pick. And those are your top 4 running backs. Tomorrow we'll be talking running back sleepers, and then Sunday we'll hit up a mock draft. So we'll see you back then. If you are watching on YouTube, please like the channel, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you are listening on iTunes or Spotify, we would love a 5-star review and maybe a rating. And please visit www.mathradio.com to help your kids ages 7 through 17 get better grades, score higher in exams, and even get into college. All right, that's it for today. Hopefully I sound a little bit better tomorrow, folks. We'll see you then. Bye.